What were you doing at 25 years old? Probably eating ramen and stressing about work. Today's guest, he's 25 and he's wholesaling millions in real estate. We're going to tell you guys what he did, how he did it, and how you can be successful like him. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Bill Gaylord. How you doing, Bill?
Doing awesome.
And our guest host for the day, Mr. Ray Rodriguez.
How's it going, guys? Appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, man, Ray, 2025 is a good start. It was just your birthday, right?
Yeah, 3 days ago.
3 days into age 25. You're a quarter of a century.
I know.
Whoa.
And he hasn't had a deal yet.
No deals yet in 25. You are a slacker. What's going on here?
Oh.
Ray, let's jump right into it, right? Because the audience wants to know the truth, man. How long have you been wholesaling real estate, and just how successful are you at 25?
Yeah, so I started working for a wholesaling and flipping company in September of 2020. So I worked there from September of 2020 to September of 22. I got a couple dozen transactions under my belt working there. And then I've been doing it on my own since September of 22. So today's January 2nd of 25. So call it like 27, 28 months around that time. So that's roughly how long I've been doing it. In that time, I've done about 162 or 163 transactions between wholesales, flips, and a couple rental properties that I own. And we've put up a little over $2 million in revenue the last 2 years or so.
Look at that, man.
Unbelievable.
So when y'all come on these podcasts and tell me that, it's hard for people of my age to make money, shut the fuck up. Like, just straight up, shut the fuck up. Because he took the time to learn, train, figure out what you wanted to do, and then you attacked it, right?
Yep.
I know a bunch of people my age. Oh, look at Metro's calling me, man. They don't listen to the rules, man. Metro, quit doing that. I keep telling y'all, quit calling my phone. A lot of people my age, they hear about wholesaling, they want to get into it, and then 3 or 4 months of cold calling, and they just quit. They poof.
How long did it take to get your first deal?
So for me, it took me 9 months, which is an extremely long amount of time.
How many calls was that?
Well, at the time, I wasn't really tracking KPIs, but I was calling between like 4 to 8 hours a day, because at the time I had a job and I was in college and I had a YouTube channel. So I was like kind of doing a whole bunch of things. So I mean, at least 4 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, I think I took 1 day off. But other than that, I mean, probably tens of thousands of calls in that amount of time.
Not for me, but for my co-host, Bill. What does KPI mean for Bill? So Bill knows what that means.
It's basically a key.
No, for Bill. Explain to Bill what KPI means.
Yeah, explain to me what
so
KPI is.
I totally know what that means.
Okay.
What does
you
that
tell
mean?
me what that is.
So KPI, it stands for key performance indicator, but what does that even mean? So it's essentially just like your stats, like in sports. So I'm a big basketball fan. So if LeBron takes 20 shots and he makes, let's say, 14 of them, there is a stat keeper keeping that keeping all that information. So in the world of business, if I make, let's say, well, I'll give you like current numbers. So right now, my guys have to have 70 conversations per day we go after realtors. So we see, okay, you made 120 calls. Out of those 120 calls, 70 people picked up. You had a conversation with those 70 people, and then maybe you got 2 leads from that. You do that for, let's say, 15 days. Now you have 30 leads. Out of those 30 leads, you're likely to get 1 contract. And so that way we can just kind of reverse engineer everything. So if that guy, wanted to get 2 contracts in 2 weeks, then okay, well then you're going to have 140 conversations per day. So you'll get roughly, 4 leads per day. And so, and so forth. So KPIs, they're basically just our stats. So that we know what's working, what's not working, what we should do more of, what we should do less of. And it really comes in handy, especially when you're tracking like your marketing budget and whatnot. Last year, I mean, we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, but we get a lot of our deals from realtors. But last year, I wanted to kind of explore a little bit in the territory of marketing directly to homeowners as well. And so I was spending between $40,000 and $50,000 every single month on just marketing to homeowners. And so when you're spending, to me, that's a decent amount of money.
That's a lot of money.
To someone else, that might be like jet fuel or whatever. Like Elon could be watching this like, I didn't even notice 50 grand.
Bro, if I dropped 50 grand, I wouldn't pick that shit up. Yeah.
Right. There's people like that. But to me, that's a lot of money. And so when you're spending money like that, you don't want to just be guessing, what works for marketing or what doesn't, what you should spend more money on, what you shouldn't spend more money on. So you want to have, like data to tell you do this or don't do this. And so that's just an example of when else we would track KPIs. We would track KPIs like for our marketing dollars, for our sales team, stuff like that. So long story short, that's not long story short. That's a long answer. That's a KPI.
Well, short for honestly, you could probably go longer, right? Because wholesaling is it's an intricate business, right? Explain to our audience, a lot of them who have heard the word wholesaling pop up across TikTok or whatever, but explain to them at the core what wholesaling is.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, I own a property and I want to sell my property. Bill, he contacts me, or somehow we get in contact with each other, and Bill says that he can buy my house for $100,000, or it can be any number. It could be $1 million, but the biggest thing is it has to be less than what somebody else would pay for it. And what does that even mean? I'll explain. So let's say Bill offers me $100,000 for my home, and I agree. Bill and I sign a contract. The contract says that I will sell my house to Bill for $100,000. Now, what Bill does is, instead of him buying the house himself, he will call you, Brandon, and say, hey, Brandon, I know you were looking to buy a property in this general area. I have this one available here for $110,000. What do you think? And let's say, you like it, you think it's a great property for $110,000. Bill and I have already coordinated a closing date. So let's say today's January 2nd. Let's say we agreed we're going to close on January 15th. You need to come to the closing table on January 15th with $110,000 plus closing costs and all that fun stuff, right? So let's pretend like this table is the closing table. So you're going to come with $110,000. You're going to send your money to the title company. The title company is going to give me $100,000 because that's what I agreed to sell my house for. And so where do the other 10 grand go? They go straight to Bill, because Bill did the job of real estate Cupid. I just came up with that term.
I like that. No, real estate Cupid is what it is.
So you're essentially getting paid for being a matchmaker. You find a seller, you find a buyer, and you collect the fee, the difference between what the seller's willing to sell their property for and what the buyer's willing to pay for it.
So basically, you come out of pocket with really nothing.
Yeah,
you are the coordinator between the buyer and another buyer.
Exactly. Between the seller and a buyer. Yeah. So that's what wholesaling is. And so the first couple dozen transactions that I did, they were all wholesaling. At the time, I wasn't flipping houses. I just wanted to learn, why would an investor buy this house, or why would they not buy this house, or what would they pay, or why wouldn't they pay, another price for it? Why wouldn't they pay more for this house? So I wanted to really get an understanding of how that worked. I think my first 30 something transactions were all wholesale. And then actually, that's not true. There were some flips, but it was primarily wholesaling at the beginning, and a couple of deals that I partnered on with another flipper and stuff like that. Well, I guess it was 30 something before I did a flip on my own. So, but yeah, I mean, wholesaling is a great way just to kind of learn the ropes, and we still do a lot of wholesale. There's certain times where I don't even want to touch a certain property, and we still want to make money on it. But yeah, now we do wholesales and flips, but at first it was pretty much just wholesale.
Yeah. When you were putting together did you have a flipping team at the start, or something you put together along the way?
No. So I was working for another investor, and as I was working for him, I figured if I had my own little assistant or something, I could make more money. Yeah. So I made a post on my social media saying, hey, does someone want to come work for me? I'll pay you $2,000 a month. And so a couple people applied, and I picked the guy who I thought was the least worst out of all the applicants.
With social media, honestly, that's what you're feeling through.
Yeah. And to be fair, at the time, my audience, it was people I went to high school and college with. I wasn't making any videos. I didn't have, much of a track record at the time or anything. So the amount of people who would be willing to come and work for that, it's not like I was having, top tier talent knocking on the door or anything like that. Sure. So I hired a guy, and he was pretty bad. To be honest, he was pretty bad. But I was also really bad at training, coaching, hiring, setting expectations, everything. Now, in hindsight, that guy is still with me today, and he's our top producer. And this year, he'll probably make $300,000. That's Jerry, by the way.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But at the time, I was horrible at training and teaching and all these things. So to answer your question with that, though, I brought on my first person while I was still technically working for somebody else. And so I was paying him out of pocket. I was paying him salary, and then I was giving him a cut of my commission. So he was getting like a portion of somebody else's portion, I guess. So I
a
hired
small
him
percentage is better than no percentage.
Yeah. So I hired him in June of 22, and then he got his first deal, I want to say like mid-August or so. And then September, I had told him that we were going to be leaving, and I was going to be doing my own thing, and he's been rocking with it ever since. So and then from there, just started hiring more people. But at the very beginning, it was like just me, and then I hired someone to help me out with certain things, and then hired more people as needed.
How many people are on your team right now?
So I have Jerry, who's like our top closer, and then we have 2 other salespeople underneath him. We have an admin. We have my dad, who manages all the construction. We have a lady in the Philippines who does some back end work for us, and then me. So it's like a 7-person crew right now.
And what's the average age?
My admin's the oldest person at 25 in like 3 months. So and then we have. Well, I lied.
Your dad.
The girl in the yeah.
Your dad's the oldest.
Yeah. So my dad's 55. The lady we have in the Philippines is like 36, I believe. But like in house, so the people who are like in our office, because my dad, he's running from like house to house. Like I don't really see him day to day. In the actual office, I mean, we have 2 21-year-olds, and then Jerry turns 25 in like 9 days, and then so we basically have 3 25-year-olds and 2 21-year-olds.
Yeah, just kicking ass.
Something like that.
When you said you got better as a coach, right? Because my goal in 2025 is like I feel like I've reached the peak of what I can do by myself, right? Because that's like it's one of the differences between real estate and wholesaling. In fact, it's why a lot of realtors should probably look into doing a bit of both, right? Because the time consumption of real estate is like doing the marketing, doing the promotion, doing the chasing down the lead, showing them 10 houses, right? It's like it's so time consuming. I can't bring in more business, right? How did you find yourself becoming a better coach, a better mentor? What steps did you go through? Where you realize, oh shit, I need to train these people better if I want them to perform how I'm performing?
How did you learn to do that?
Yeah. So for example, growing up, I thought like I was like a really good basketball player, right? Like I was like, oh, I'm for sure gonna go to the NBA.
I can hoop.
Yeah. And then
were you Carlos Arroyo fan?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a deep cut. That's a deep cut. Y'all don't understand. That's a deep cut, man.
Yeah. So I'm Puerto Rican, and so we can always chat about like anything like Puerto Rico related. Yeah, I for sure like I admire the guy, but I grew up like admiring like Kobe Bryant when it comes to like basketball players.
Okay.
But absolutely, I'll always like have respect for any like Puerto Ricans who made anything.
Come on.
Yeah. So
this man's got deep hoop knowledge, man. He's got deep hoop knowledge.
Yeah. So anyway, how did I get better as like a coach or a mentor, right? Well, same way with basketball. I thought I was like a really good basketball player, and I was like, oh, I'm for sure going to be on the Lakers one day. Like there's there's like no way that I'm not.
Mind you, how tall are you?
Yeah, I'm like 5'8".
5'8". He's on the Lakers.
Yeah. But I can hoop though.
Yeah. And so then you start playing like travel ball in high school, and then you realize there's guys who are like 6'8" in like 9th grade, and they're like dunking, windmilling, and they can shoot it just as well as you can, and they're faster. Like okay, so then same thing happened to me in real estate. I was like, well, I'm like helping this guy. I mean, I'm telling him the things that I know, so it should be like working. It's kind of like that meme that's like you're poking the bear, like come on, do something.
Do
like,
something.
Come on,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I felt. And then I joined a coaching program. I paid like I don't know, like 15 grand or whatever it was, and I got really close to the owner of that coaching program, and he has sales trainers that work for him full time that are training his team and all these things, and those guys have been working for him for years now. And I said, hey, like if it's okay with you, can I pay 1 or 2 of your guys like per hour to come and teach my guy a thing or two for like 2 weeks? I just want to see like how things go. Anyway, I had already been training my guy for like a year at that point, maybe like 10 months or so. And he had gotten better, but I was still like rolling my eyes at like all his sales calls and whatnot. So that was 10 months, of him with me. 2 weeks with my coach's like sales trainer. He had made way more improvement in 2 weeks with him than 10 weeks with me. And that was kind of when I realized like I'm not going to the NBA. That was like my
That was your
business
moment.
of like basketball. So it's kind of like when, in high school basketball, I realized like there's guys that are a lot better than I was.
Yeah.
I realized there's like sales trainers that are way better than I was. And so what was supposed to be 2 weeks, I've now been paying him for like 15 months. And so he meets with my team 4 times a week now, and my team has gotten so much better as a result. So truthfully, I probably haven't gotten any better as a sales trainer because I immediately fired myself as soon as I saw what that guy could do.
There is a great book that you should get. I read it. It's called Who Not How. Who Not How. And it is a great book, and it allows you to understand that you can't do everything really well.
Yeah.
And there's other people that can do a lot better for you.
Yeah, that's true. It's a hard lesson to learn, right? But you've seen the financial benefits of stepping away as doing everything, right? Like you're convinced, especially when you first start as an entrepreneur, that like I have to do everything. That's the only way it's going to be right. And then you realize the further you step away, the more your profits seem to rise, right?
And people can do it better than you.
So where are you now that you stepped away, right? Now that you've got sales trainers training your team, you've got top sales guys making calls. Where do you find yourself? Are you just like doing oversight? Are you still hands-on?
Kind of. So recently, Jerry came up to me and said, "Hey, I would like to have like a higher role in the company if you think that makes sense for me." And so what we think made a lot of sense for him was for him to be managing some of these like other sales guys underneath him. And so the crazy thing is I told Jerry, I said, look, you can do that, but my fear was I don't want to have, for example, let's say, let's use the Lakers again as an example.
Okay.
Let's say you have LeBron on the court. And you can argue right now he's in a decline, whatever. But overall, he's considered to be like one of the greatest, if not the greatest ever. I'm sure like most people would agree.
Oh no,
with
he's
that.
the GOAT. I'm tired of that argument, man. He's the
Cool.
GOAT.
No.
Okay, perfect. So we all agree he's a great basketball player. Now imagine if LeBron says, "Hey, I don't really want to play anymore. I just want to coach." It's like, well, we're not saying that you don't have the knowledge to be a coach, but I think you're going to be a lot more beneficial to the team if you're a player.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what my concern was with when Jerry wanted to kind of be mentor, or not like mentor. Oh, yeah, I guess you could use that word. I was like, well, I think you could be really good at that, but for this team to be successful, I think it's best if you stay in the role that you're in right now. And so I made him a deal. I said, look, I am willing to work with you as long as I'm still getting what I want and what I'm paying you for. If you're still hitting your numbers every single month, I'm happy with you taking on this role. But if there ever comes a time where you're taking on this role and as a result you're no longer producing yourself, or you haven't had one of your guys, just compensate for like what you're not doing, then we're gonna have a different conversation, and I'm putting you strictly back to just being a sales guy, and that's it.
Because LeBron makes more than the coach, right? I'm not paying you to be a coach. I'm paying you to be LeBron.
Well,
Right.
and if LeBron's production went from 24 points a game to 10,
Right.
you're like, no, this is not good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You need the production from that salesperson.
So Jerry's been in that role now a little less than 2 months, and he's been crushing it. So his sales numbers, they haven't dropped at all. And the other guys that are underneath him now, their numbers have picked up. So that's kind of how that is now. So to answer your question, am I like overseeing things? I'm mainly just overseeing like one guy right now and having him oversee a couple other people. Well, I oversee one guy on like the sales side of things, but then I also have to oversee my dad on like the construction side. And then I kind of oversee like my admin and our VAs a little bit. But for the most part, that doesn't take up too much of my day, because what Jerry does, that's more time consuming. Jerry's the guy overseeing like the other guys. So I might be overseeing people for like 2 hours a day, and that's mainly just meeting with my dad for an hour, fill me in on the construction of, all these houses, fill me in on what happened today. Was there any like BS with any of the contractors? Everything going well? Okay, cool. And then I'll have a similar conversation with Jerry. Okay, let me see, okay, the sales team got this many leads today. what happened with these leads. Okay, this one got put under contract. This one is a hot lead. This one is like a warm follow up. This one, okay, cool. So I'll chat with him and kind of see what's going on there. And then when I'm not doing those two things, I'm either raising capital for our deals. Like I called Bill the other day and I was like, hey, can I have some money? So I'm like looking for people that that'll let me borrow money for some of these houses. Or if I'm not going to flip them, if we're going to wholesale them, then I'm looking for people that want to buy them off of us. So I'll do that. And then I'll also spend a good amount of my time just seeing what can we do to be better. Because don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for where we're at, but I don't want to be like stuck here or anything. So I always want to see how can we improve. So those would be like the three main things that I do. Just see how we can improve, raise capital for our flips, and then just wholesale, find buyers for the ones that I don't want to buy.
Yeah, so you're the braid maker. You're making sure that business is not just coming in, but it's growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an important role. Every organization I've been a part of, there's always my girl Hallie. When I was with Hallie, yeah, she was a raid maker. We don't know what she did, but she would show up some month and she'd be like, "We've got 7 new clients." And I'd be like, "Holy shit!" Like, or we'd walk into a party and I feel like I'm a social person, bro. We'd walk into a party with her and she would walk out with like 9 new leads, and I'm like, "How the fuck did you do that?" Right? Just raid making. One thing I want to get to though is that I think that Gen Z is actually not just well suited, but almost like built in a lab for wholesaling, right? Because it involves being a little bit tech savvy. You have to have that hustle mindset, and you have to be willing to like relentlessly network, right? Which you do at the Vegas pitch all the time, right? Can you speak a little bit about that? Do you feel like you have a little bit of advantage because you guys come in being way more technologically advanced than someone like me, right?
Well, KPI at 24, I know you're 25 now, but that's like huge. And having a team developed underneath you, you just kind of did it. You just kind of learned. You are self-taught, correct?
I feel like I wouldn't consider myself self-taught because I feel like it'd be a little disrespectful to the people who like showed me a thing or two. So I definitely learned from a lot of people, whether that be mentors who I paid for, or like I used to work for somebody who taught me a lot of these things, or even on social media. But just like in your business, you'll learn a lot just from like your trial and error. So I've definitely taught myself that. Cost me a couple dollars that I lost here or there, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm like self-taught. A lot of things, I figured out on my own. But
when you say lost a couple dollars here and there, what are some of like the big mistakes you made when you were first starting out?
I mean, I've lost money on like bad flips. I think my third flip, I partnered with somebody, and we had agreed on a 70-30 split. So if everything went well, my job was to bring the deal. His job was to bring the money and handle the construction. At the time, my dad, he wasn't like in this business or anything. So now I use my dad full time. But at the time, my dad was doing something else. So this guy's job was to bring the money and to like take care of the construction. So the plan was when we made money, he would take 70% of the profit and I would take 30%. And so we ended up losing $40,000 on that house instead of making money. So he lost 70% of the 40,000 and I lost like 12 grand, which in hindsight, or it didn't even feel that like painful to me because at the time I had my realtor license. Even though I never really did anything with my realtor license, it was just for me to find properties on MLS and basically get them like 3% cheaper.
Yeah.
We had agreed that I would credit my commission. It came out to be $12,000 a commission. It was like a $400,000 home. So I credited that like to the purchase. So like right before we closed, we had an addendum that instead of me getting my commission, it would be like credited to the purchase.
Sure.
And so when we ended up losing and we realized that like my loss would have been 12 grand, I felt like nothing really happened. Like I didn't like come out of pocket.
Yeah. You got a number. So, you got a flip on the book. You got another purchase on the book, right?
Yeah.
Out of the pocket for nothing.
So I mean that was technically like a $12,000 loss, and I mean I've had stuff like that, or so I've had like losses on flips, but mainly losses on like stupidity, such as like marketing that didn't work out. Like I spent like 60 or 70 grand last year on Google ads, and and then I think we made like 40 grand back. So we lost like 20 or 30 grand there.
I'm glad you said that, because I was actually going to make a pitch to kind of dive into Google Ads a little bit this year, and I'm very hesitant to see if it's worth it. I think it's such a flooded space.
So from what I've seen, if you can get your cost per lead to be like under $200, you'll be good. The problem is, everyone I know here in Vegas, your cost per lead is like $500 to $700. And so I was in a coaching program. Like, I've paid for so many coaching programs, but there was one where they're based out of the Midwest, and their cost per lead was like half of mine. But long story short, our numbers were pretty much the same with like everything else. And so I'm like, okay, I would be profitable too if my cost per lead was like, $250, $300. And I could probably make the argument that that's just an excuse as well, and that I could be getting better at whatever it is. And so we could have found a way to be profitable. But I think I know one guy who maybe he's doing PPC successfully, and I'm just assuming he's doing PPC. I'm not even sure.
Now,
but
I know what PPC means, but for Bill,
explain to me.
Sorry.
What
can you
PPC
explain
is.
to Bill and the audience what PPC
Sorry,
means?
PPC is Google Ads. So PPC stands for pay per click. So you run an ad on Google, and every time somebody clicks, so let's say, for example, right now, like, this isn't even an example. This is the truth. I'm hungry. Like, I'm getting, it's time for me to eat. And so I'm not from like this side of town. So if once I leave here, I'm going to Google food near me. Or actually, today's my first day with my trainer, so I shouldn't be doing that. I should go eat like my meal prep. But something is going to pop up, and there's going to be a bunch of restaurants, but at the very top of Google, what's going to be on there? Sponsored. It's going to be like, oh, like this restaurant right here. So if I click on that, whoever's running the ad for that restaurant, which is probably the restaurant owner, they're going to be charged something. Whatever they get charged just depends on like what it goes for in like that niche right there. So in our space, if I run an ad, whenever someone types in "sell my house fast, Las Vegas," I want my company to pop up. If you click on that link, I'm gonna pay Google like $500 or $600. So that's what PPC, pay per click, aka Google Ads, same thing.
Okay. You've been in the game now for about 4 years, right? With somebody, not by yourself. What are some of the best tips you could give somebody who's just starting out? Like, and not just like the tips they give you on TikTok, like the real shit, like the stuff that's going to help people overcome that first. What'd you say? You didn't get your first deal for 9 months?
Yeah.
What are some tips you can help to keep somebody motivated that first 9 months when you're struggling?
So before even getting into it, I would just say, hey, you need to understand that it's not going to be something that happens tomorrow. I mean, it can be. I've helped some people get their first deal, and I mean, I've probably helped like 30 people get their first deal, and I've seen 2 people get one on their first day. But for the most part, that's not really happening, and I think there's like a lot of luck involved with that as well, to be super fair. But understand it's going to take a while. And if you're not willing to like wait it out, I probably wouldn't even get started to begin with, because then it's just a big waste of time. Like, for example, I mentioned a few seconds ago, today's my first day with my trainer. Hopefully I stick it through, but if I don't, then I might as well not even get started, because then then like if I'm just going to continue being like chubby and like having no muscle and then like and still eating poor, then maybe what's the point? Or I don't know.
It's like everybody who went and bought their gym pass on January 1st, and then they're just going to feed the gym $20 a month for the next few months.
Well, we want you to get into the training just so you can get back into the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. And to get back in the NBA, it's like I had to put my recruitment on pause, because the Astros just
the
kept
next
coming.
video is going to be like 25-year-old millionaire uses his money to fund hoop dreams, right?
Yeah. So kind of super small side note. I had promised myself, like as a kid, I was going to the NBA. Like I was like so dead set on this. Like there's no, no other way. And so I still kind of owe that to myself, but I don't think it's going to happen as a player. Or you know what? I'd be more surprised than anybody if that were the case. But I think one day I just have to become as successful as Bill in business or something, and be able to buy a team. So we'll see. we'll see. Because I feel like I owe it to
don't think
myself.
that's going to happen.
I mean, I've seen this guy's house, but we'll go from there.
Man, we could do. I said we should do a whole video just from this man's house, man. But that's a different story for a different
It took
day,
us like
man.
3 hours.
Please.
The first time I went to Bill's house, I got lost, man. I said, "What is
Like
this?"
I needed a GPS to find the restroom.
GPS,
Yeah,
right?
but look at me. I'm almost retirement. I am retirement age. I'm 64. right? So I've had like 40 more years than you. Yeah,
I mean,
by the
I'm
time
just
I
saying,
want to see
I'm
you,
impressed.
I don't know if I'll be able to, but if I see you at 64, holy shit, where were you going to be at 64 with what you're doing now? This is unbelievable stuff that you do. It's that diligence, it's that dedication, the desire, the drive, the discipline to make this happen. And that's what it takes in any business, and particularly in the real estate business.
No, I appreciate it, and I'm just saying, hey, I admire what both of you have built. But yeah, back to the advice that I would give someone is just, if you're not going to be willing to stick it through, I probably would just go find something that'll pay you faster, such as a job.
What does it look like? Okay, I'm a first time wholesale. I know nothing about it, but I've heard what you said. I'm young. I'm hungry. I want to make real money. I'm tired of maybe I'm a realtor who's tired of doing one deal a month, and what you're doing sounds a lot better. What is the step-by-step process for what you do? Not now, but when you're first starting off on wholesaling.
Yeah, so when I first started off, what I did is different than like what I would recommend. I was cold calling homeowners. And so basically I had a list of tens of thousands of homeowners in Las Vegas. I would call them and say, hey, Brandon, do you want to sell your house? No. Oh, I should F off. Oh, okay. No worries.
Where would you get your list from?
So at first I was working for somebody and he had that list already, God knows from where. And so I would just call it. But whenever I help someone get a list, if they want to go call homeowners, I would recommend websites, and I'm not affiliated with any of these, but I would recommend a website like Batch Leads or PropStream. You can just go download a list of homeowners in whatever city you want, and then you can go pay a couple $100s to get all their phone numbers and email addresses. But that's probably not even that's the method a lot of people take, but that's not really what I would really recommend. I'll still talk a little bit about it because I mean a lot of people prefer that approach. So to each their own. But that's what I did when I first started. I was cold calling homeowners, and I would just ask them if they wanted to sell their house. Most people would tell me no, and I would just go call the next person. And then I would get someone who'd say, yes, I do want to sell my house. But there's a big difference between someone who wants to sell their house for retail. Yeah. Retail means like what the house is worth versus someone who wants to sell their house for wholesale. Wholesale means like at a 30% discount. So let's say I'd get someone who owns a $400,000 house. They're like, yeah, I'd be willing to sell for $1 million, or or that's not even retail. That's a tire kicker. Yeah. But let's say yes. Go ahead.
How many hours is this? Like how long is this process?
So yeah, the question was like, how many hours was this? I mean, probably
7 days a week.
I mean, I was doing it like 7 days a week. I think I missed like one day in 9 months. So I mean, probably a couple thousand hours. And I've never seen it take anyone longer than it took me. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh man, like I don't have the ability to spend 9 months, it's probably not going to take you 9 months. But I don't know, it might. You might be worse than me. Probably not though. But anyway, I spent thousands of hours like making phone calls, and then. For one deal that made me $3,000. So not a lot of money. Probably like $1 an hour, or maybe not that low, but still not a lot of money. And so that's what I did to get my first deal. And that's what a lot of people do, and that's what a lot of like the people who sell coaching programs online teach you. I'm not a big fan of that because I think a lot of like you're spending most of your time talking to people who aren't even interested. Like let's say, for example, this is going to be like a really like crazy example, but let's say there's a dude here, right? Well, I mean, like we are dudes, but I mean, I know you're married. Are you in a relationship at all, or are you single? Okay, perfect. So cool. So we're all in relationships. Like you guys are married. I'm engaged. So I'm not going to use us as an example, so we're not in trouble. But let's say there's a different dude.
Oh
here,
no. We wild out here, bro. Tell some stories. Yeah,
he gets in trouble all the time.
There we go. So
pretend like I am a single dude. Pretend like my wife doesn't give a fuck at all.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So Brandon, let's say like you just wanted to go on a date, and I'm assuming, right? I think it's safe to assume you're straight male, like all these things, right? So
that's perfect. Pretty safe. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. So would you spend your time, if your goal was to go on a date, would you spend your time like talking to 100 dudes? Like, do you think that would be like a good use of your time if you're trying to go on a date?
No.
Okay, and silly question, but why not?
Well, because I don't want to date dudes.
Perfect, right? Silly question and simple answer. But the same thing applies. So if I'm looking to get my first wholesale deal, it doesn't make sense for me to spend 99% of my time talking to people who don't even want to sell their house.
Yeah.
And so that is the method that a lot of people will teach. They'll say, hey, go talk to all these homeowners, go cold call homeowners, and you'll eventually find someone who not only wants to sell, but is willing to sell at a discount because they have like an urgent reason to sell for a discount, whether they're about to get foreclosed on in 2 weeks, whether, it could be whatever, a divorce,
Needle
a
in a
death.
haystack.
Yeah. And so, yes, like those coaches, those gurus, like they're technically correct. If you do, talk to like a million homeowners, you will eventually find that one, but it's not the most efficient or the best way to do things. Just like if your goal is to go on a date, you're probably not going to talk to people who aren't your ideal avatar. Like for me, my goal is to go close on a property. Why am I going to go talk to all these people that just because they own a home, that doesn't mean they want to sell it, nor do they want, much less do they want to sell it at a discount. So I switched from just cold calling homeowners to just calling realtors that had properties listed on the market. Because even though they may not have wanted to sell at a discount, they wanted to sell for list price, market value, whatever. They were at least one step ahead of everybody else who I was calling. At least I know these people want to sell. Yeah. Everyone else was like, oh, I don't even want to sell. Like, F you, stop calling me and take your ugly hat off. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't.
Well, especially as you, someone who's paying salespeople to make calls, right? And are they getting paid by the hour? Are they getting paid by the call? Right? Because why would you spend 8-10 hours a day calling leads where you're not going to generate something from? We're calling realtors. That's a higher what? KPI?
KPI.
Right?
There you go. You got it. Yep.
Right? Are we learning
Key
here, boys and girls?
performance
Key
indicator.
performance indicators, right?
Yeah. So I switched from, and this is what I would recommend, but I mean, a lot of people are going to still do like the cold calling homeowners route, which to each their own. But
as a homeowner, please don't do that.
Yeah, just don't call me or my homes.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So I just recommended just going after properties that were already on market because I mean they at least want to sell. They may not want to sell at a discount, but they're at least like one step ahead of everybody else who said, "Oh, don't even call me. I don't ever want to sell this home," or whatever the case may be. So I got the next like 30 something deals just from doing that. Just going on market and finding properties on there, sending them like a lowball offer, or just looking at properties that were listed already at a bit of a discount. So if all the houses in one neighborhood are listed at $400,000 and this one lists for $350,000, I mean that's not anywhere near as big of a discount as what I would need it at. But it at least starts a conversation of like, oh, how come you guys are listed 50 grand below everybody else? And then you would find out what the motivation is, like what their timeline is, all those things from there. And it's not going to be a deal like on day one, but if they're still on market 3 weeks from now and they're selling because, here's a real situation. I mean, it was like an elderly couple. They lived in a 2-story house. And the reason they wanted to sell was because the wife had fell down the stairs twice now. Yep. She already had 2 hip replacements and their bedroom was on the second floor. And they're like, hey, look, we cannot go through another surgery. We're in our 70s. We don't want to be morbid, but we don't want my wife to, have another surgery. It doesn't go well. So we just, we have pretty much 100% equity in this home. I think they owed like 20 grand or something on like a $400,000 house.
Sure.
And
they could take the hit. They wanted to get out fast.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I bought their house for like $270. They ended up buying a condo, at a different part of town, and they seemed to be happy. And so we renovated their house. There was nothing wrong with it. It was just super outdated. So we, put new floors, countertops, all that stuff in there, a nice new kitchen, bathrooms, all that. And then we sold it for $400. So that's an example of like a property that I would go after that's listed on market. All the comps are at $400. You list at $350. Let's find out why, that seller is even selling. Call the realtor, see what their timeline is, why they want to sell, how much they want, what would be ideal for them. Make it super easy for the seller, super easy for the realtor, and that's it. And then the beautiful thing about going directly to realtors instead of homeowners, that homeowner and his wife, they're never going to sell me another property. That's the only house that they owned at the time. Now they probably only own that one condo. They'll probably live there the rest of their lives. You never know, but that realtor, however, she probably has another 20, 25 years left of business. The likelihood that in the next 20 to 25 years she'll have another client like that, I would say it's over 100%. Like there's no way she won't have another client like that. So I would much rather build my business with the clients being the realtor as opposed to the homeowner who's only going to sell me one house and then I'll never talk to you ever again. So I've done, there's this house. I just got keys to it yesterday. I bought it last week, but we gave them a little lease back. That is now my 4th deal with that realtor. I've never had a seller do more than one deal with me. They sell me their house, and they're done.
That's a wrap.
So I would highly, and it's free to go after realtors. Whereas if you want to go directly to homeowner, which is what a lot of people will teach, go to batch leads and go pay them $100 a month for a membership. Go pay them a couple $100 a month or not a month, but just a couple $100 to find everybody's phone number, and then go pay for a dialer, upload all that information, call them, and you can do that. And a lot of people teach that. Fine. I would much rather just go after real estate agents and get my deals that way.
This guy's the reason I get 12 texts a day, man. His team is working overtime because I have 2 phones and both of them are blowing up. Yeah. And I respond. I still text it back like, "Hey, man, if something comes my way, I got you."
And you'll start a conversation. You'll start an offer, and then it may be another 30 days before they realize they really want to sell.
Yeah.
Right. And the property's listed for a reason. They want to sell the home. It's just there may not be enough buyers out there.
And that happens all the time. We just got one. They were listed at $335. The realtor called me. She said, "Hey, Ray, I think I have a deal for you." I was like, "Okay, what's the address?" I look it up, and I see they're listed already, and I see it's listed like in the 330s. And I'm like, "Hey, like this isn't a deal for me." And she says, "Oh, well, I think it could be a deal for you." I'm like rolling my eyes a little bit. And she says, "Well, what number do you think you would need it at?" And I said, "Honestly, like 220. So they're listed at like 330 or 335. And I say I need it at 220. And she says, "Put it in writing." And I say, "Hey, I'll be super honest with you. Do you think there's a good chance it gets accepted? Because I really don't want to, it was like 10 p.m. like on a Friday. And I'm like, "Hey, look, I'm about to go do something. I'll write this up, but do you think it's going to be a waste of time or what?" She's like, I think it would be worth your while. And so I sent it over, and then I woke up the next morning, and she had emailed me at like 7 a.m. She's like, "See accepted offer below." And so how often does that happen? Not very often, but it's an example of like, hey, Bill brought up a great point. They're already listed. We don't know, things can change. Maybe they were listed for maybe like a week or two. So from the time that they listed to the day that the realtor called me, something must have changed, And I typically ask like, what's the motivation, all these things. But to be completely honest, like I was just trying to like get out the door.
Yeah.
I didn't really think that was going to be anything, but I was like, so. And
getting a 33% markdown on an MLS listed property is crazy.
Yeah. And then all I did was just wholesale it. Like I literally just wholesaled it off to somebody else. Like, whatever. I was like, quick, like 15K or whatever it was. But earlier, I want to go back to something. Earlier, you asked me like, what would be a piece of advice that I would give someone if they're just getting started or whatnot. And this is, I gave an answer. But now that I think about it, this is something that I would say instead, or not even instead, but just on top of. So something that I always tell myself is, X may be my goal, but who cares about what your goal is? What is it that you'd be willing to give up for that goal? So, for example, I think that day, my girlfriend at the time, fiance now, we're going to go meet up with some of our friends and like go hang out, Friday night, whatever. So what am I like willing to give up? Well, I'm willing to give up, even though like I still got to go out that day. Like instead of us like leaving like right when we were like excited to go, I'm like, all right, give me 30 minutes to like hop on this call, comp this property, type up this offer, send you proof of funds, like just take care of that really quick. So I would say, hey, like if you have a goal or there's something that you want to do, anyone can say anything. Like I can say I still want to make it to the NBA, right? But like, what are you willing to give up for it? What is it that you're willing to do? I would say that's like probably an even bigger piece of advice than just like, you still got to be willing to like stick it out, and it's going to take a while. But and again, I'm starting with my trainer today. I don't necessarily have a goal of like having a 6-pack. That'd be nice, but I do at least want to like slim down and put some muscle on. Yeah. I can say that all day, but if just because I paid the guy already, if I never show up to the gym, or if I don't stop eating like Houston's hot chicken every day,
that shit's crack, by the way.
It's probably never gonna happen. So
the cheesy chicken sandwich.
So I'm a really picky eater. I like everything plain. So I'm just like bun, meat, ketchup, and like that's it.
Respect.
Yeah. So that's how I like mine. But Houston tastes really good.
You do the lift off. You get a little spicy with it?
No, no spice for me. No spice at
You
all.
do the honey,
spice.
no butter? Oh,
Yeah, I do. No,
man.
no honey butter, no spice, no pickles, no coleslaw, no sauce, just ketchup.
Wow.
And someone just like hit dislike, but don't hit dislike because this is Brandon's channel. You know, if it were my channel, I could understand that, but no, I wouldn't.
In fact, I actually, the introduction to wholesale obviously is going to take up a large portion of this, but one of the big things Bill and I like to talk about here is that real estate, wholesaling, whatever you do, it's more mentality. Like our biggest tips are never like, take out an FHA loan. No, it's like the mentality of what are you willing to sacrifice to get the thing. I would love to have you back on because I would love to teach a lesson to the young men in America of like, no, you can't get this without giving something up. This idea that you're going to be able to go to do everything on time, to make it to everybody's birthday party, to make it to all the cool events, that's bullshit. It's impossible, right? You were making calls for 10 hours a day. There's no way you could make it to everybody's events all the time, right? So I would love to have you back on to talk about the mentality that it takes.
Sounds good.
Not just the tips, but like legitimately the mentality it takes to be where you are right now.
Can I ask him one question? Obviously, because I'm in the finance world, right? So a lot of people look at this and they go, well, shit, he buys it. How does he buy it? Where does he get the money to buy it? And how do you go about getting the money to buy? Like if someone's starting out, they go, well, I don't have freaking $400,000. How am I going to get $400,000? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so every house that I've bought, well, there's been a few that I've put some money in up for, but for like 99% of them, I haven't put up a single dollar. And so what does that mean? That means if you don't have any money today, you can still do this business. You can still go buy houses, even if you don't have money. What you need to do though, is you need to go find people who have money that are willing to let you borrow it. So for me, I didn't have any connections, like not at all. My whole life, like, well, not my whole life, but the majority of my life, we were tenants. You know, we didn't, like my family didn't own real estate. And my parents didn't have like high paying jobs, no rich uncles, like nothing like that, no connections. So for me, I joined when I was working for another investor. He also had a coaching program that I got to join like as an employee. But in that coaching program, I got to meet a ton of people who had money. And so in there, I found my first lender. He let me borrow $340,000 for one house that I needed in Henderson. Now, if you don't have the money to join a coaching program, you can still meet pretty much all the same people at free meetups. Because what I've noticed, sure, you know, a lot of people, they'll pay $25,000 a year for a coaching program, but those same people, they'll go to the free meetups all the time. Like in 2023, I spent $70,000 on coaching. And so I'm in all these like high level coaching programs. You'll go to the free meetups like across town and you'll see all the same guys. So if you don't have money for a coaching program, go to all the meetups. You'll find the same people at those free meetups, and you'll also find other flippers. So for me, before that guy ever felt comfortable like letting me borrow money, well, what made him comfortable was that he saw I had already done 16 flips with a partner. And so that partner was the guy that I had been working for beforehand. I brought the deal and we did like a 70-30 split that I had talked about earlier. That guy brought all the money. And so I could at least show the person that I wanted to invest in my deals. I could show him, I could say, hey, all these deals I was a partner on, and I found the deal for all of these. I was able to analyze it and bring it to another investor and say, hey, this is why I think we should invest in this property. And we made money on the vast majority of these. And the one that we didn't make money on, this is what I learned. And so it was like, okay, you know, I'm willing to let you borrow some money. So go into, you know, if you can afford a paid coaching program, I would join that. If not, I would go to all the free meetups. And then from there, you'll start meeting lenders. And then once you start doing some deals, I would start posting about it on social media. I don't do too much social media, but I'll post on my Instagram story like pretty much every single day. And then I'll get people just sending me a DM saying, hey, yeah, I have $250,000. I have $300,000. I'll let you borrow. And so that's how I get most of my lenders. I mean, most of them just come from social media, and I have a smaller following than both of you. I mean, both of your followings are, you know, yours is like 10 times the size of mine, and then yours is like 100 times the size of mine. So like, if you're watching this and you're like, oh man, I don't have a following like Brandon or like Bill, well, neither do I. And you can still make it happen. So just get in the right rooms. It doesn't matter if you don't have money, just go now you know. Oh, and if you don't know how to find these meetups, go on Facebook and type in your city real estate investors. So I would type in Las Vegas real estate investors and I would join every single group, and then people will post about their meetups in there and just show up.
Yeah, there's
Guys,
investment groups
to
out
prove,
there.
To prove to you that he's serious, I'm quite literally going on Facebook right now, and I'm going to type in Las Vegas real estate. Oh, never mind. Facebook won't let me log on. They want me to get an approval from my phone. What coaching programs would you say, if I could only take one? Let's say I've been saving up, I've been scrimping, I've been saving, and I want to take one program that's going to change my life. That's the one that's going to put me on my start. Which program would you recommend?
Ooh. They've changed a lot, like since I've joined. Nowadays, a lot of the programs. So when I went through a lot of these programs, you're gonna pay an upfront fee anywhere between $10,000 and $25,000. Now what I've seen, a lot of them have kind of switched to like a very low dollar amount, but it's on a monthly basis. So I would look into a couple of programs that are willing to do like $100 a month as opposed to like 10 grand up front. Right. And then find out what is it that you're going to learn if you join these. And then I probably wouldn't commit to one of the a $10,000 upfront program when you can probably get the exact same information for $100 a month. Put it this way, I don't want to recommend any program. But if you send me a DM and you tell me what it is that you're looking for, I'll point you in the right direction.
The big point is you have to invest in yourself. You have to realize that you don't know it right now, and you have to make that investment. And that's part of the ability to grow like you, Ray.
No, and that let's save that, because that, again, we want to have you back on. I want to have you back on, honestly. I've been, we had to slog through a lot of the education of the audience, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to have you back on and speak just about mentality and what it takes to get to this place. So I saw where you're going, and I want to. That's
no problem. I'm done.
That's a lot of good information for the next time. Ray, how do they find you? We already tagged you on the Instagram stories, but for people watching on YouTube, how do they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at RayRRodriguez_. And if you want to send me a DM, I'm really good about getting to all my DMs. So send me any questions that you have or whatever you need. I'm pretty decent at this real estate stuff. I can help you out. So
yeah, Bill, as always, tell them where to find you.
BillGaylord.com or that's OH.Gaylord on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm tired of you guys' excuses being that no one's around to help you. Bill will help you get pre-approved for free. And Ray already said that if you just DM him, he's happy to give you advice. So please stop saying that there's nobody out there willing to help you, because there's 3 people on this panel willing to do it right now at all times. So stop that, all right? Like we tell you guys, we bring people in here to show you that your excuses are bullshit. All the excuses I'm too young to do it. I've missed my net. That's bullshit. This man did not grow up being like, I'm going to be a wholesaler. He found a job, he took it seriously, and he escalated. He had hoop dreams, right? And then he realized he could be profitable somewhere else. So stop with the excuses, stop with the bullshit. As always, I'm Brandon from Vegas. You can find me quite literally anywhere on the internet. Just type my name in, DM me, message me. I answer every single message, no matter how long it takes. Welcome to 2025, where we're going to be even harder on you guys. We're going to talk even more shit to you guys, because it's time to stop being broke. Don't be broke.com. Remember, what was that? Who was that? Rent-A-Center or Dollar Loan Center? Wow. Don't be broke.com. That's our new motto around here. There's no reason for it, man. This guy just gave you guys the absolute step-by-step money play. And if you're not willing to do that, then fuck off. You deserve to be poor. All right? Thank you guys for your time. And as always, come and be my neighbor. Peace, 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 peace.